and we wish everybody a speedy recovery. We also know there are many people who join us months from now, or days from now, or from hours from now across the country. So welcome to all of you who join us virtually. You are equally included in this virtual ministry. This morning we have a special guest. We actually have a lot of wonderful stuff and multiple special guests. We have the choir up in the historic choir loft. I'm told that this is the first time in 25 years. Oh yeah, go ahead and give them a wave. Hi choir. I can't even see them. We also have a very special guest from the Grand Rapids Ballet. Madison is with us, and she will be dancing up here later as the choir provides music for that special performance. So thank you for being with us. We also have Margie Peterson with us on piano. Thank you, Margie, as always. And we also have a special guest preaching with us this morning. Very special to me. Her name is Reverend Jody Betton. And Reverend Jody Betton has been working with me for about a year now on a consulting and coaching basis as we've navigated through a lot of transition here. But beyond that, I have known Reverend Betton and her husband Dan, who's with us out here, for 13 years. They hired me at East Congregational Church in the Ottawa Hills neighborhood as the church's principal organist 13 years ago. And when I worked there, they came to me months after I started and they said, "Christopher, have you ever considered seminary?" And I thought that was a horrifying idea. I told Joy this morning, I was actually offended. I was like, they don't know me very well if they think I would go to seminary. And at the time, I also told them both, no, I think I still want to be a teacher when the economy gets better. And my dream, though, might be to be like the organist or maybe a pianist at Fountain Street Church downtown. Well, 13 years later, it is not lost on me to have this reversal of sorts, and I'm so honored and humbled to welcome you with us, Jody. Friends, I know we come into this space holding a lot. There has been a lot again this week, a lot of joy, a lot of loss. I am fully aware of the magnitude of yesterday's shooting in Buffalo, New York, and the implications that brings. I'm aware of all of the weight that we're holding from the ongoing Supreme Court anxiety. And I'm also aware of the excitement that we have about spring that is finally showing its face to us, and the excitement of a summer that's returning and all of the transitions that come with that. So please remember that no matter who you are, no matter where you are on your journey in life, whether this is your first time here at Fountain Street, which I know for several of you it is, or you've been a lifer, perhaps you sang up in the loft for years, whether you live across the country or just up Fountain Street itself, which several of you do, whether you are joining us from home or your office or sometime months from now when you stumble upon us, no matter who you love or who you're loved by, each and every one of you, each of you has a place in this community. So welcome to worship. Thank you for being with us, and I am so glad to spend this next hour with you. Oh, I guess we've got a hymn, huh? I guess we got a hymn.
I'll call to worship, maybe?
Sure, why not?
So I have to add one other little piece. I like to take credit, well, my spouse and I, for introducing Jonathan, Christopher's spouse, to Christopher while they were at East Church.
Yeah.
I don't know, it probably would have happened anyway. It was a God thing. And we officiated at their wedding, and we preached at your ordination service.
Yep.
So there were some significant milestones along the way, and it really is an honor to be here with you all today. If you could see the butterflies in my tummy. I want to invite you to hear this invitation to be in this space with this poem by Wendell Berry. Geese appear high over us, pass, and the sky closes. Abandon, as in love or sleep, holds them to their way. Clear in the ancient faith, What we need is here. And we pray, not for new earth or heaven, but to be quiet in heart and in eye clear. What we need is here.
We continue with our worship together by singing hymn number 139. It can be found in that gray hymnal out there, and Margie's going to lead us in hymn 139, Wonder Still the World Shall Witness. That's right. And you are welcome to join as you're able. Yeah. Ew, we got the... Thank you. You may be seated. As we continue with our worship, I also want to lift up that I've been made aware that the sound system is not as reliable if you're under the balcony. So if that's going to be an issue for you today, or you're already sensing that you're having an issue with that, I just want to invite you as you're able or you wish to go to the center. Not necessary, but I just wanted to be mindful of that for some of you for whom that might be a little obnoxious or trying. We will continue with our readings for this morning. This morning's ancient witness comes to us as an adaptation from the book of Ecclesiastes by the Reverend M. Barclay. We want to invite you to hear what the ancient spirit is saying to our contemporary souls this morning.
For everything, there is a season.
Very little is as simple as good or bad.
It is more often a question of who and of when.
A why or a how.
There are times to birth new things.
There are times to welcome death.
There are times to plant seeds for those to come.
And times for harvesting the long labor of others.
There are times when destruction is necessary.
Or at least unavoidable.
And there are times when healing is possible.
There are times to create art, and there are times to tear it down.
There are days when only weeping will do.
Others for laughing.
Some days we can only mourn.
Others we dance, we ebb, we flow, and we find our way in community.
Sometimes we long to be in the arms of another.
Other times we need the intimacy of solitude.
There are times for seeking a way through the impossible.
And other times for accepting our losses.
There's a time to hold on and a time to let go.
There are times when some of us need to be silent.
And times when the rest of us must speak.
Love has its time and hate has its place.
Conflict must be accepted.
And peace welcomed in due time.
May we listen our way into
and out of each season.
With wisdom as our guide.
Forcing nothing outside of its time.
Receiving everything for what it is.
Trusting love's companionship.
Laboring toward liberation together.
This morning's contemporary witness is an adaptation from the poem In Search of a Round Table, written by Chuck Lathrop, who was a Catholic justice missionary, and it was adapted by Reverend Jody Benton. Hear what the contemporary spirit is saying to each of us in this space this morning. Concerning the why and the how and the what and the who of ministry, one image keeps surfacing. A table that is round. It will take some sawing to be a round table, some redefining and redesigning, such redoing and rebirthing of a narrow, long churching can be painful for tables and even more painful for people to be tables. But so is the cross, a painful two-table of giving and yes. And from such death came life. From such dying comes rising in search of a round tabling. And what would round table churching mean? It would mean no dicing and throning. It would mean no dicing or throning. For but one rule is there. The one who was a foot washer at a table no less, for at narrow long tables, servant and mirror became picture framed and centers of attention, and crosses became but gilded ornaments on bare stone walls, in buildings used but once a week only. But the times and the tables are changing and rearranging. And what of narrow, long table ministers when they confront a round table people after years of working up to the table, as in up the ladder, to finally sit at its head only to discover that the table has turned around? Continued rarefied air will only isolate, for there are no people there, only roles. They must be loved into roundness, where apart is spelled apart, and the call is to the gathering. For God has called people, not them and us. Them and us are unable to gather around, for at a round table there are no sides, and all are invited to wholeness and to food. At one time, our narrowing churches were built to resemble a cross, but it does no good for building to do so. If it lives, it does not. Round tabling means no preferred seating, no first and last, no better and no corners. For the least of these, round tabling means being with, a part of, together, and one. It means room for the Spirit and gifts and disturbing profound peace for all. And it is what we are present with, leaving the sawdust and chips, designs and redesigns behind. We can no longer prepare for the past.
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Life is full of questions like that. I heard you had a question, and so I'm going to answer it yes. I am Jody Betton, the daughter of Joe Betton, one of the founders of the Betton Auto family. However, I know very little about cars. And I, like my mother married to a car dealer, used to say, I don't care what color it is, I don't care what's under the hood, as long as the wheels go around. I am one of 35 cousins on that side of the family, and my grandfather was a minister in the Christian Reformed Church. You're Grand Rapids, you know Christian Reformed. All 34 of my cousins are kind, generous people. And we grew up in the summers together. I know them like my siblings. And when I watched my grandfather lead worship and baptize my baby cousins, it felt to me like God descended into that place. And I thought to myself, if I could bring the presence of the holy into a space like that, life would be worth living. And when I was asked what I wanted to be when I grew up, at about age 12 years, and I said I wanted to be a minister just like my grandpa, I was told in no uncertain terms, you cannot be a minister because you're a girl. Here I am. Thank you. It was ironic to me because I had been nurtured in that church to be a leader. No kidding, in my red velvet dress and my black patent leather shoes at age 3 years old, I recited the poem that opened the Christmas pageant. At age 12 years old, I was the narrator for the youth service. And that same year, I joined the church as the youngest member ever. I thought my trajectory was in the church. And when I heard that wasn't an appropriate trajectory, well, let's just say I spent some time struggling, rebellious, wondering, what the heck is this church thing anyway? Economist Theodore Levitt of the Harvard Business School was a visionary. In 1975, in a piece entitled Marketing Myopia, he described why industries grow or fail. Every major industry was once a growth industry. The reason growth in an industry is threatened, slowed, or stopped is often not because the market is saturated, but because of a failure of management at the top. 2 examples. The railroads did not stop growing because the need for passenger or freight transportation declined. In fact, it only grew. Railroads became failing because the need was filled by cars, trucks, airplanes, telephones, fax machines, computers. Railroads lost customers because they thought of themselves in the railroad business instead of the transportation business. They were product-oriented instead of consumer-oriented, concerned with their own self and survival instead of who they serve. Remember when there was Blockbuster Video? Come on, come on. You're aging yourselves. I do. In 1994, Wayne Huizinga sold the video chain to Viacom for more than $8 billion. 2 years later, it was worth less than half of that. What happened? We all know movies started coming into our homes via the internet. People didn't have to drive to Blockbuster to pick up a movie and then worry about incurring late fees. Blockbuster was in the video renting business. Netflix, Hulu, Disney, and a million other companies are in the home entertainment business. So what is the church's business? What is the thing that we do that isn't undone by some other industry? Why is the church dying? Why are people leaving in droves? I became a minister in the Reformed Church in America, which was ordaining women at the time. The position that I had as a minister that was the most formative on my spiritual journey was in an integrated church in a Black community, the first south suburb of Chicago, Riverdale, Illinois. I realized immediately that if I was to preach in that pulpit, I had to live in the community. I could not rail against poverty and then go back to my upper middle class suburb. I could not preach against gun violence and drug dealers and then go back to my safe white suburb. So I bought a house there. People thought there was something wrong with me. We used the parsonage for youth ministry. This neighborhood was average age 25 years, higher than national average grandparents raising grandchildren, 2 elementary schools on the watch list, even though property taxes in that community were as high as Hinsdale, the wealthiest suburb of Chicago. The projects where my mentee lived and where my 2 cats came from, they were born under my mentee's bed to keep the mice population down. That neighborhood was called Alt-Geld Gardens. Well, it was named Alt-Geld Gardens. It was called Alligator Gardens. We are in Kansas no longer, Dorothy. As a church, we created an anti-racism curriculum which we shared with the United Methodist Church in the village. My friend Irene Taylor was the pastor of that church, a Black woman with the same credentials that I had. And when we did the unpacking the backpack exercise, we started at this end of the room, and every time one of the criterion was mentioned, can you buy a Band-Aid that matches your skin tone? Are you followed around in the store when you go shopping? Can you buy a house in any neighborhood that you can afford? Each time I answered yes, and I walked across the room, and when we were done answering the questions, I was on this side of the room and Irene was there. I was stunned by that realization. It changed the priorities of my life going forward. This was a community with people who grew my heart, who challenged my sensibilities and took me on a new journey. One other thing happened while I was there. The president of New Brunswick Theological Seminary, the Reverend Dr. Norman Cansfield, a professor in the Reformed Church in America, performed the wedding of his daughter to her wife in Massachusetts when it was legal. and he was tried in an ecclesiastical trial for heresy. My spouse, myself, and 2 other members of the association where our churches were signed a letter that said, "Engage in dialogue or hold us accountable too." And we, all 4 of us, were brought up on heresy charges. This was in 2005. As I learned to name the injustices of the communities in which I lived, I had to risk my financial well-being and my career. In this situation, my church stood by me, even though they might have to leave the denomination. I had been confronted in 3 ways with biases and prejudices against people I knew and loved, including myself. My understanding of my role as a spiritual companion, a space maker for people of faith, became the cry of the journalists taken up by Mother Jones and Dorothy Day to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. Y'all pretty comfortable in those seats there? How about you at home in your jammies with your coffee? Sorry if you have COVID. And if you're not comfortable, because while many of us in this community, by virtue of the fact that we're here, that we live here, that we live in America, are very privileged, many of us also know roles in those minority cultures as well. And our stories are all we have. As soon as we begin to generalize or categorize for the sake of expediency or efficiency or ease, we create the us's and them's, the binaries that manifest in stereotypes and hold people in positions of subordination and others in positions of power. So, we must learn to sit with discomfort. Perhaps our most important task in this time is to listen to the stories of those who are different from us, to listen deeply with a desire to be born anew. I didn't say again. Some of you got that. And we often get stuck. The familiar that we know is sometimes easier to deal with than the potential good we don't know. So what is the church's role? What is a faith community to do? What impact can people of deep compassion and spirituality have? You probably figured out by now I got a lot of questions. Here's a possible way to think about this. P.T. Forsyth, Scottish theologian in the late 19th century, this is what nerves do to you, once wrote, quote, "God is certainly no less concerned than Nietzsche that a person should receive the fullest development of which they are capable. The difference between God and Nietzsche lies in the moral method by which people grow into possession of themselves. In one case, asserting themselves, in the other, by losing themselves. We complete our personhood only as we fall into service in the vital movement of the society in which we live. Isolation means arrested development. Social life, duty, and sympathy are the only conditions under which true persons can be shaped." Unquote. If our work as the church is about the well-being of people, and I would include creatures and the planet in that concern, that can happen best if we are willing to give of ourselves to foster a different kind of community where all are seen and heard, where all are safe and well, where all can live fully and authentically. We have the capacity to do that. We just have to figure out a way to cross all those barriers, to be uncomfortable for the sake of the story that we have not yet heard. Now, giving doesn't mean surrendering. It means yielding to not knowing. It's hard for those of us who know a lot of stuff. Susan Beaumont, in How to Lead When You Don't Know Where You're Going, suggests that in these liminal times, when the past is gone and the future has not yet come, we must ground in wonder, open to a learning posture, and listen to the voices at the edge. I wonder if we could have the lights, and if you would do me a favor. I'm a guest. You'll do me a favor, right? Is it too hard to get to the lights? Maybe we can do this with the lights down. I wonder if, for a minute, you would share with someone close to you a recent moment when you wondered. Maybe it was when you slept through the night last. Maybe it was that beautiful sunrise or sunset. Maybe it was the bird just outside your window. Maybe it was a conversation you had with someone close to you or with someone not close to you. Would you take 30 seconds each? I know you don't do this in this space, right? Would you take 30 seconds each and share with someone close to you a moment when you wondered? I'll keep time. How will this go? I wonder how this will go.
Right? I wonder the same thing. I wonder why there's more people than I expected.
What? There are more people?
It's been good, yeah.
Oh, good. Good. I actually did sleep last night. That's a wonder.
I fell down the stairs last night and I wondered why I missed the step.
Gee, that's not good.
I know, I even got a boot.
Oh, I could kiss it. Not here. Not now. Is this out of their comfort zone?
Yeah, I mean, the last time I saw something like this is maybe. I mean, the chapel community did this every year.
Yeah. Yeah. I invite you to finish your thought and come back into this space. Imagine doing that with people you don't know across a variety of boundaries and barriers. I want to end with a poem. Octavia Butler is an African-American science fiction writer. If you don't know of her, I invite you. Seek her out immediately. This is a poem she wrote. All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. Change is the only truth. God is change. My hope, my wonder for us is, can we be communities that make space for healing and listening, for wonder and for change? People of God, may that be who you are. Amen. Sit down in front. What a lovely invitation to a time of prayer. I invite you all to be at home in your bodies, in this space, to take a deep breath, to uncross whatever may be crossed, to lower and tuck back your shoulders, to soften your face and your eyes, to close them if you're comfortable doing that, and be in a spirit of prayer. Holy One, source of life, ground of being, We are home in you, and yet we are restless. There is so much in our world, so much in our communities, so much in our hearts that make us anxious and excited and struggle. We think especially of another mass shooting in Buffalo, and we pray for that community and the families of those who were murdered. Indeed, we even pray for the white gunman, an 18-year-old. It reminds us of our own Patrick Loyola, who was murdered by gun violence, by police violence in our own community, a black man. And we think of others in the black community who relive this situation over and over. We think of women who are wrestling right now with a potential change in the availability of reproductive rights. We lift those who make decisions and interpret them, those who will be subject to the consequences of them before you, God. We honor all women, all who live as women in our communities. We think about our planet as it burns. We ask that you will give us compassionate hearts, hearts that think to act in ways that will bless the planet and not continue to hurt it. And there are other things on our hearts that we've heard in the news this week, and in this moment of quiet, we lay them before you. The things in our closest communities. The things in our families. And the things within. Give us healing. Give us a capacity to listen. Give us a new sense of wonder. Give us the desire to change. Amen.
I had the privilege of being at yesterday's Bands Off Our Bodies Reproductive Freedoms Rally. And Fountain Street was well represented. I ran into many of our own there. We were also proud to sponsor, or be one of the co-sponsors rather, of this organizational event. And there was a lot of goodwill for both our church and the ministries that support these reproductive freedoms and justices. Additionally, I've been in and out of the community in meetings and in other public forums relating to racial justice or Patrick Loyola, and in each of those places and spaces, I am running into our congregants, our community members, and people who recognize me or Reverend Greta Joe, and our presence as a church in these places. In other settings over the last week or two, I've run into folks, or I've read in the press recently of an initiative up at Plainsong Farms, a food justice ministry, where we were quoted as being one of the organizations that had given them a grant to succeed and thrive and flourish. And so if the question this morning is, does the world need Fountain Street Church? Well, I'm not prepared to answer for you. But I will pose the question, What does the world need? And where is Fountain Street Church showing up? Because we are. One of the ways we show up week after week after week is through the weekly ingathering of our offering. We have a profound tradition here of offering up 50% of every week's collection directly back into collective impact initiatives like Plainsong Farms or Ebony Road Players or any number of groups seeking grants or the Choice Fund. 50%. But the other misnomer is that 50% isn't just here so that we can pay everybody a ton of money and just relish in the dripping gold crosses. That is not what the other 50% does. The other 50% also enables us and mobilizes us to keep showing up. Because the world has a tremendous amount of need right now, and Fountain Street Church is poised and positioned to keep showing up. So please know how profoundly important this weekly collection of your offering gift is. One of the reasons I never wanted to become a minister is because I never wanted to have to stand up and ask for money. But we need it. It is one of the facets that makes this 153-year ministry work and show up. So please give as you're able. Please give generously and know that it is most graciously received. You can also give electronically through Venmo or through any of our other electronic giving ways of tithing and pledging and collecting and gathering. With that in mind, we're going to sing our offering hymn as the offering is taken. It can be found in the gray hymnal. It's also our closing hymn, hymn number 34, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire. Hymn 34, and the offering will now be graciously received. And please stay seated for this. It makes it easier for everybody. Before our blessing, we have a whole litany of announcements this week. Probably the most pressing and the one many of you are interested in is that we have a congregational meeting shortly after this service concludes. So we're going to go with 10 minutes after the postlude is done. I don't know if you need to set a timer for yourself or you just want to stay here, but 10 minutes after the postlude is done, we will reconvene in the sanctuary for those who want to step out for a second, and we will have a short congregational meeting. And this is, again, to remind you, to announce who the people will be that will formally serve on our church senior minister search committee. So those results will be shared at that meeting. I'm sure our chair, Amy Preston, will have a few remarks leading up to that. So please even if you just are interested in who it is. Stick around. I want to let our friends from home know the feed will stay up for 10 minutes. Well, it'll stay up longer. It'll stay up, though. So you don't need to close out of this. You can just keep your live stream going, and 10 minutes after the postlude, you'll be able to enjoy watching those results as well. Next week, we have two wonderful things going on for you. In the service, we have our Senior Sunday. This is something we're kind of restoring after a few-year hiatus because of COVID. So all of our graduating seniors in high school will be participating in the service. They will have different roles and gifts they're going to bring to it. I truly hope that you will make a special effort to come see what they have to offer all of us as a gift in parting as they go on with the next part of their life. I assure you it's a beautiful theme that they're working with. So please try to make it for that special service. A few hours after that service is done, we have the Fountain Street and Friends Showcase concert. I'm looking forward to that. We have 6 different talented guests who are either members of the church or friends of the church and just want to support and uplift what we have going on here in this ministry. So that'll be at 2 p.m. in the sanctuary. A free will offering will be collected, again, as part of this endeavor to continue to show up in our community, to help support this ministry, and to have a little fun while we do it. There is more information in the Friday Flash about that, and I will also be sending out a personal email invitation to everyone tomorrow, kind of detailing ways you might get even more involved with that special event. So thank you so much for supporting that for those of you who are able to. And finally, I just want to lift up that our final Sunday in the sanctuary for the year is only a few weeks away, June 5th. June 5th, we will have a celebration service of looking back at this unbelievably remarkable and powerful year we've shared together. I think it's a year like no other after coming back from COVID and all of that. And so we'll have a special service on June 5th to uplift everything we've gone through as a community together. And then it's into the summer speaker series in our chapel with air conditioning. So that will be wonderful, not to mention a powerful list of folks who will be speaking from the congregation throughout the summer, and that's put on by our Religious Services Committee, so a special thank you to them for curating this year's once again. And I think that's all I have other than my thank yous. Thank you so much, Madison, for being here. That was such a special moment for everybody. Mm-hmm. Special thank you to Margie, who is always here and ready for us. Thank you, Margie. Of course, we owe a huge debt of gratitude, as always, to the choir, somewhere up there. And, of course, to my friend and colleague, Reverend Jody. Thank you for being and leading worship with us.
Thank you. It's truly been an honor. I need to say thank you to my spouse who's here lending a supportive presence, my son, my eldest child who's here, and 2 of his children, Lennox and Bo. Thanks for being here, guys. See? And now go with this blessing by L.R. Nost, a white American author, social justice activist, and founder of Little Hearts Gentle Parenting. Do not be dismayed by the brokenness of the world. All things break. All things can be mended. Not with time, as they say, but with intention. Go. Love intentionally, extravagantly, unconditionally. The broken world waits in darkness for the light that is you. Amen. Go in peace. Amen.
I'm just going to get up there and say we're going to start in 5 minutes. We're going to start the meeting in 3 minutes. So, 3-minute warning. It is 11:14 on May 15, 2022. I'm calling the May 15, 2022 special membership meeting of Fountain Street Church to order. My name is Amy Preston, and I currently serve on your governing board as its chair. Welcome to all who are here today. Thank you for attending and participating. I see Bob Chaplow waving at me. And is that a hand or a finger, Bob? And to all of those who are joining us through the live stream at home, we welcome you here today too. This special meeting was called for the purpose of selecting the members of the Senior Minister Search Committee. There is one primary purpose of importance in today's meeting, and that is to collect the remaining ballots, tabulate the votes, and then announce the results for the election to serve on the Senior Membership or Senior Minister Search Committee. If anybody has not turned in your ballots yet, please raise your hand and one of the ushers or one of the inspectors will collect your ballot right now. Seeing none, the inspectors can leave, and ushers, thank you very much for your assistance. They can go forward and be on their way. The inspectors for today's election are Kristen Locke, Jared Nichols, and Katie Mitchell. As most of us, and while the votes are being tabulated, I thought that what we could do here is I could give you a little bit of an explanation as to what the process is. I don't expect the vote tabulation to take terribly long. And then open the floor for questions. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask about what the process is. As most of you are aware, we have been without an active senior minister now elected by the membership for about 15 months. During that time, we've been fortunate enough to have Reverend Christopher Rowe serve and continue to step up to Fountain Street Church in ways we didn't even know that we needed, and serve as our acting senior minister. However, at some point, we need to elect an effective and active senior minister chosen by us, the members of Fountain Street Church. Pursuant to the Fountain Street Church bylaws, this can only be accomplished in one way. And the way the bylaws are written now, that we must elect a senior minister search committee, and they are charged and entrusted with the responsibility to evaluate candidates, and then bring one candidate to the membership for vote. And that one candidate that they bring to vote can be elected by the membership to become our next senior minister with a vote of over 2/3 of the votes cast on that particular occasion. Prior to getting to the point of a senior minister search committee electing or selecting somebody to nominate for the membership to consider, we must have the slate of candidates to run for the senior minister search committee identified. And last August, we started that process by a motion that was made to the governing board to start the process of having the nominating group collected. At that particular time, we started the process in August and September. The nominating group came together. That nominating group was comprised of Tim Creamer, who was the chair, Sue Chapla, Monica Stegman, Katie Mitchell, Jeff Kempter, and Shelley Jeffries, who filled in for Amber Kilpatrick after she resigned from the governing board. Pardon? Can you catch it? Oh, I could have thrown it.
I'm too short to reach from there. There's no chance I'm getting up that high.
Thank you. The the nominating group for the senior minister search committee came back to the governing board in March of this year with a slate of 14 candidates. At the April meeting of this year, the governing board identified May 15th today to call a special membership meeting. Notices were mailed out, and today we are selecting from that slate of 14 people, as those were the ones that were identified on the ballot to be sent out. That's the process. Once we elect the senior minister search committee, they're charged to do how they so choose to select somebody to bring to the membership at Fountain Street Church. They can have one meeting. They can have 1,000 meetings. They can have their first meeting in 2 years. It's not prescribed in the bylaws of Fountain Street Church. What's identified in the bylaws that the senior minister search committee must do is identify qualified candidates, use an outside professional firm if they so choose, recommend one candidate for senior minister search for the senior minister position, and then notify the governing board to call a special meeting for us to vote on it. That's what the definition of the senior minister search committee is charged with doing. So this vote today is an important vote, and we were fortunate enough to have 14 very qualified candidates to step up today and run for election for this position. And I cannot thank them enough. I'm going to identify them before we announce the results. I don't know what the results are. All I know is that it was a difficult decision because we had 14 people that really showed a very great passion for Fountain Street Church. Their biographies that they wrote for being on this committee were wonderful, and their passion and history with Fountain Street shows that they have a commitment to seeing Fountain Street go forward in the future. I do know also that the membership here at Fountain Street Church is invested in this. We had a great voter turnout on this. Already we are sitting here with over 56% of the votes cast. And this is in about a 14-day period of time. We sent the ballots out at the end of April, and it's May 15th right now, and we have over 56% of the votes cast by people. So thank you to all of you who have stepped up and chosen to participate in this process, which is very important to the future of Fountain Street Church. I have nothing further to say until we wait for the votes to be counted. The inspectors of the election started this process. They started counting them, I believe it was Friday afternoon. Then they also continued this morning as ballots were coming in. They took some remaining ballots out of the box as people were leaving the service at 10 o'clock, so I don't think it will be terribly long. But in the meantime, if anybody has any questions that they would like to ask, what the process, about what I'm having for dinner tonight, just raise your hand. We don't have a mic, so what I'll do is if I can hear you clear enough, I will repeat your question so that the viewers at home can hear it and other people that might not have heard it here. Otherwise, we will just wait until one of the inspectors walks in with the results. Any questions? Good question. The question was, is Reverend Christopher Rowe eligible to be considered as the elected senior minister of Fountain Street Church? And the answer to that would be yes. There is some confusion in some organizations that if you have an interim minister of some sort, interim ministers are not eligible to be considered for the senior minister position that they're filling in between ministers at a congregation. That is determined by the bylaws and the policies of the specific church or particular faith. We don't have that as any of our bylaws. So we don't have any term that an interim minister could not be considered. We did try to, I think, in some ways, as we identified the title of it at the governing board level when we asked Reverend Christopher to fill the position that he's doing right now for the last over a year, that we use the term acting senior minister instead of interim minister, because an awful lot of the work that he has been doing in the last year has been some of the interim work that you would expect from a interim senior minister to do. But by any qualification, he would be eligible if he so chooses. Any other questions? Yes? There's no time limit. Nope. The question was, is there a time limit for the Senior Minister Search Committee to get back to us with a recommendation for us to consider as a membership? And the answer to that is no. There likewise was no time limit for when the governing board established the nominating group for creating the slate of electors for the Senior Minister Search Committee. So they can take as long as they want or as short of a period as they want. It's just that they are charged and entrusted with the responsibilities of identifying qualified candidates and just bringing one to the membership to consider for election for the senior minister position at Fountain Street. Any other questions? Okay. We're going to take a break here for a few minutes until we see somebody walk in. Would like to thank Jamie, though, while we're at it, for opening the windows up today. Who would have thought in May it would have been uncomfortably warm in here when we walked in? If you were here at 9 o'clock, you would be glad that he opened the windows when he did. It's a beautiful day out there. Yes? No, not that I'm aware of, but that would be the responsibility of the Senior Minister Search Committee, which is not established yet. So I don't know who they would apply to at this point. So if anybody's out there saying they've applied for the position, make sure it's Fountain Street Church in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and not some other Fountain Street Church, because it's not us. Yes?
Where would be some of the places that the committee might start searching?
As far as what resources the search committee would use, I don't know. I really don't know. We had a senior minister search committee a short while ago that employed an awful lot of resources, and I believe that most of their work and resources were preserved and are going to be available for the next senior minister search committee once it comes into existence in about 4 or 5 minutes, I hope. But I don't think that there's any definite list for which they must look for or any definite minimum set of procedures that they have to do. So it's really in their entire discretion. I am, yeah. I'm going to read all of the people that were on the slate before, but if you want me to rattle them off now, I will be glad to. The people running for the Senior Minister Search Committee in its entirety were, oh, and just so you know, that when we sent out everything, and it's going to be the same way maybe with this vote coming in, what we attempted to do was to eliminate any inference with regards to ballot bias of any sort. So when we put the names on the ballot, we put them in a random order so that it wasn't alphabetical order, it wasn't how long you've been at Fountain Street order, it was just purely a random order. I've asked the senior minister or the inspectors of the election to likewise do the same. So I'm not going to be reading off the votes in any particular order. I'll just be reading off the names of the individuals that were elected to the Senior Minister Search Committee. And those people that were running for this position were Andrea Seidohl, Paul Arnold, Kathy Barr, Judy Botts, Chip Wall, Angie Walters, Leslie Beck, Marie Maurer Penny, Kathleen Higgins, Ken Norris, Carol Townsend, Mary Peterson, Natalie Beverslew, and John Willett. And I believe we have the results. Okay. I want to thank all of those people for running. So let's give them a round of applause, please. Every name I just mentioned is going to be part of Fountain Street's future, whether they're going to be part of Fountain Street's future because they're on the Senior Minister Search Committee, or because they're on other committees, or they're standing up here running an annual meeting someday instead of me. Thanking all of them for their dedication to Fountain Street and being willing to get up here and do this. So thank you very much. And those individuals that have been elected to the Senior Minister Search Committee: Marie Penny, Judy Botts, Natalie Beverslew, Angie Walters, Andrea Seidohl, Chip Wall, Kathleen Higgins, Paul Arnold, and Carol Townsend. That is our new Senior Minister Search Committee. I thank all of you for running again and for participating in this election. Are there any questions from the membership? I see a question way in the back from Carl Wall Jr. Seeing no legitimate questions from anybody from the floor, the chair will gladly entertain a motion to adjourn this special membership meeting. I see a motion. Do we have a second from anybody? And a second. All in favor of adjourning this meeting, say aye. All opposed, say nay. This meeting is adjourned at 11:30. Thank you very much.